I unlocked my door and froze beer bottles on the rug. Wet footprints up the stairs. A crooked banner on the porch that still read, "Congrats, Dylan." Like my home had been rented out without me. I called the woman who organized it, and she said it was for the community. 2 months later, a judge asked if I had given permission, and she whispered the words that ended everything. Not at all. My name is Marcus Reed, and for years I lived out of carry-ons and calendar invites. The kind of life where your phone decides when you eat. So when I bought a place at Lake Cedar, I wasn't chasing status. I was chasing quiet. The kind that shows up with the first coffee, when the water is flat as glass, and the light hits your kitchen like a blessing. I thought if I kept my head down, the peace would stay. You know what I mean. 2 weeks and an envelope slid under my door, heavy paper. HOA crest pressed deep like a seal from a castle. We noticed your dock. Light does not match the uniform style. Please make immediate adjustments. I laughed. Set it by the fruit bowl. Told myself, this is the HOA tax. You pay for a pretty view. Then she arrived. Karen Whitfield, president, walking my driveway with a clipboard tucked under her arm like a badge, eyes scanning my porch like she owned a ruler. Only she could see Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed, your deck chairs must be neutral. Nothing bold. Dock light, compliant by Friday. That's how we keep harmony. I told her I had just moved in. Give me a second to breathe before I repaint chairs and replace bulbs. She smiled without warmth and said, "Our rules apply equally to everyone." The way she hit everyone felt less like welcome and more like a warning. After that, I started hearing little lines at the mailbox. You've got the perfect patio for community photos. The view is great for gatherings. And when I asked who said that, it was always. Karen said, in that careful tone people use, when a name might be a shield or a weapon. Then a memo taped to my box about exploring larger gathering spaces for cohesion. Residents with suitable properties are encouraged to contribute for the greater good. The phrase greater good has done a lot of bad. So I opened a folder. Photos, dates, copies. Not because I wanted a fight, because I've learned you only get quiet when you're ready for noise. I knocked on Karen's door and kept my voice level. I keep hearing about a party at my house. You want to explain that? She tilted her head like a hawk that just saw movement. It's a community celebration. Marcus, think of it as your welcome integration, not isolation. No permission, I said. Not happening. She held my gaze like she'd practiced it, and answered sometimes. It's not about permission, it's about participation. And that was the moment I realized she wasn't asking. She was declaring the kind of smile you feel while your fence line is being nudged 1 inch at a time. The next week, vendors showed up like my driveway had posted an RSVP. A tent company dropped stacks for early storage teenagers with clipboards chalked, "Hedges, not lawn." On my private drive, a DJ tested bass on the street, and my glass doors hummed with it. I photographed every van, every face. We were hired by the HOA president, hoping a paper trail could stop a train that was already moving. Then, Friday night, I was in Durham for a quick consulting day. A neighbor texted, "Big party at your place looks wild." I called, and she half laughed, half apologized. "I thought you knew." Karen said it was all set, valet and everything. I stared at the hotel. Ceiling slept maybe 2 hours. That felt like none at all. And before sunrise, I drove back with that heavy quiet in my chest that only hardens the longer you carry it. I turned into my driveway and just stared. Tire ruts chewed the lawn like bite marks. Plastic cups rolled in the breeze. The porch smelled like stale beer, and somebody had ground cigarette butts into my welcome mat, like they were rubbing out my name inside a cushion. Was ripped open, stuffing like gray snow, greasy fingerprints on the glass table, a paper plate of barbecue fossilized into the rug upstairs, shoes on my duvet, lipstick on the mirror, closet door hanging open like a mouth out back. The dock rail was hanging by 3 screws, boards cracked where kids had jumped without looking. My boat cover torn, water pooling on the seats. Peace doesn't always die loud. Sometimes it dies with the soft sound of everything being slightly wrong everywhere. Sharon. My neighbor hovered at the driveway like she'd been rehearsing how to say it. "You're back already." Karen said it was cleared. Everyone thought I raised a hand because I knew what everyone thought I called Karen, she answered. In 2 rings. Mr. Reed, tremendous success. The community loved it. "You broke into my home," I said. "You trashed my property. You had no right." She didn't blink. "No one broke in. We had access for community needs. You should be proud. Your house brought people together." "That's not community. That's trespassing." "Be careful with your words," she replied, flat as a cutting board. And the corporate part of me almost tried to negotiate with a bully. Yeah, that happened. So I hung up and called my attorney, Victor Hayes, a man who believes in 2 things: dates and receipts. "You own it outright," he said. "Consent is a fact, not a rumor document. Everything. Photos, videos, social posts, vendor emails. If they crossed your threshold without permission, that's trespass and willful damage. We go step by step, so I screen-recorded Instagram stories with my address, tagged in cute captions like #LakeVibes, saved TikToks with strangers in my bedroom. Mirror downloaded every clip with a timestamp, and then I read a vendor email that said, "Spare key pickup. Friday. 2 p.m. That right there was the cold pivot. The twist you feel in your ribs the moment anger turns into math. The neighborhood split like a lake. After a speedboat, some folks avoided eye contact. Some walked across their yards to say she went too far. The HOA held an emergency meeting at Karen's house. I didn't go. But I heard Doug, the retired banker, who trims his lawn like a military haircut, slammed his fist on her table. "It wasn't your property to use," he told her. Karen tried to sell discretionary rights, and greater good parents realized their kids' names were on lists that might cost real money. Someone muttered, "Easy for you to say," and the floor under her composure started to shift. We filed on a Tuesday Reed v. Whitfield et al. We named the organizer and the HOA, and every person who crossed my threshold after being waved in by an authority that did not exist. 100 names, 100 claims, at $100,000 IJLS. Damage tied to invoices and daylight papers were served. Phones lit up. Grocery store aisles turned into whisper corridors. Sharon asked me at a gas pump, even the kids and I, said it plain. This isn't revenge. It's responsibility. You let it slide once, and it becomes rule. Some called me harsh. Some called me brave. That night I slept like a man who finally drew a line and meant it. Discovery pulled the curtain vendor emails, where Karen wrote HOA authorization, secured a caterer, testifying under oath that the HOA president handed her a key screenshots with timestamps that made the timeline click like a lock. I didn't enjoy any of it, but I didn't flinch. Day came, and the gallery filled with neighbors who weren't on the list, but wanted a show because gossip tastes better with air conditioning. The judge walked in like a weather change and Victor opened like a carpenter measure, twice cut at once, Your Honor. This is not about fence colors. This is a private home invaded at the direction of Miss Whitfield consent. Never given damage documented. He laid out photos like a slow drumbeat. The ripped cushion. The hanging dock rail. The grin in my mirror. From a stranger's selfie, Karen's attorney did the shrug. Smile, harmless. Community celebration. At worst, a misunderstanding. The judge asked a simple question that cut clean. A misunderstanding that cost over $75,000 to repair. Sharon told the truth. Karen said Marcus approved. I should have called him sooner. Doug spoke like a man. Paying off a debt, she said the HOA had authority. That's why people went along. Victor put the emails on a screen. Access confirmed, valet plan approved. Key pickup Friday. When I testified, I kept it plain. I bought that house for quiet. I came home to strangers in my clothes and my dock, hanging by screws. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a decision by someone who thought her title meant more than my name on a deed. Then the judge looked at Karen and asked, "The only thing that really mattered, did Mr. Reed ever give you permission to use his home?" Karen tried to stall, like a better answer might arrive if she waited. Explicitly, not explicitly, or not at all, the judge asked. Not at all, Karen said, and the room got so quiet you could hear a sleeve whisper. Sometimes the loudest thing in the world is a quiet admission. The ruling wasn't a speech. It was bricks clicking into place. The court found she orchestrated unauthorized entry and use of a private resident's liability attached to the organizer, and to each participant damages awarded. Accordingly, a gasp rippled Karen's clipboard. Slipped and hit wood. A week later, a notice went up at the clubhouse window. Special vote, removal of President Whitfield. Passed, no champagne, no victory lap. Just the sound of consequence. Winning doesn't always feel like winning. Repairs got done. Checks moved. But the neighborhood didn't reset to neutral. Blinds closed. When I walked by, kids got called in early. A couple for sale signs sprouted like white flags. Sharon sat at my table and said, "They're furious. Some blame you, more than Karen and I told her. I didn't host 100 people in my house without asking." She nodded. Nobody ever told her no. We all let her run things because it was easier than thinking I walk the property. Now, the way you check a bone after the cast comes off. New rug, new boards, cameras that don't blink. The dock holds weight. But it remembers that's what damage is. You can sand and stain and make it pass for new. But the wood knows. Do I think I went too far some nights? I turn that question over like a stone. I can't skip. I know some folks are carrying costs they didn't expect. I also know if you let it slide, it becomes tradition, and the next person pays for your silence. What do you call it? When harmony means hush. When greater good means your space, your time, your things. Just this once until it becomes always boundaries. Don't announce themselves. They show up when you say no, and back it with facts. When you'd rather be called harsh than live with the slow rot of being agreeable. My mom told me years ago at a wobbly kitchen table, if you want peace, you build it with your own two hands. I learned you also defend it with your voice. The lake is still beautiful at 6 a.m. The light still cuts across the kitchen like a promise. Some neighbors wave again. Some don't. The HOA talks about rebuilding trust. Maybe that happens. Maybe people keep their heads down and pretend this neighborhood was never a story. Maybe they still say, "I went too far when the grill is hot," and the stories get easy. Whatever they choose to remember, here's my question for you. When someone with a title says participation instead of permission, when kindness gets mistaken for consent, Do you go along because it's easier? Or do you draw a line and pay the price that comes with keeping it? Drop your take in the comments and tell me where the line should be. Tell me your HOA stories. The times you stood up or wished you had. If this hit home, like and subscribe. But more important, speak up, peace. That